Hello YouTube! So, TJ the Amazing Atheist has recently gone under fire from one Jenny McDermott? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Anyway, Jenny is a supporter of Anita Sarkeesian's work and an apparent feminist. So, with that out of the way, I wanted to make sure that one thing was clear. I don't care that she is addressing TJ and criticizing him, because quite frankly, he is more than capable of defending himself. And she has every right to do that, just as I have every right to criticize her, Anita Sarkeesian, and whoever the fuck I want. I am not saying she should not criticize TJ. I am making this video because I think some of the other things she says are demonstrably false. So, with that out of the way, let's dance.
The Amazing Atheist is a prominent godless YouTuber who, along with making atheism videos, also makes anti-feminism videos. I believe he is regularly attacked for this on the social media site Tumblr, and because of it has surmised that every feminist in the world hates men and him.
TJ can believe whatever the hell he wants, but I personally don't think that all feminists hate men. In fact, a lot of them don't. It's just a small, very vocal minority are extremely misandrist, and they seem to be getting a lot of mainstream media attention, which I think is quite tragic. But I don't only take issue with the individuals within feminism. I take issue with the feminist ideology as a whole. I find feminists quite interesting because I think that the way they paint people like me and TJ as we think everyone's a woman hater or a man hater, I think it speaks volumes to the way they think about the world in this simplified dichotomy of if you don't support women, you hate women. Or if you don't support feminism, you're automatically a misogynist.
Anita Sarkeesian is the host of Feminist Frequency, which investigates the ways in which the residue of years and years of sexism and misogyny throughout history still clings to film, media, and most importantly, the video game industry. She uses her research findings to expose how female game characters are often sexualized, made to appear disposable, and are the targets of violence.
You mean research, right? Even if I were to grant that all of these things was literally everything you saw about female characters in video games, why does that matter? I'm asking you why it matters because can't we all just accept these tropes for what they are? They're tropes. They're not supposed to be representative of real life. Sure, there may be some elements of realism in games, but for the most part, they're fantasy. Most of us aren't fucking serial killers that go around and shoot people. Most of us aren't misogynists that go around and, bang a prostitute and beat her up for the money that we just gave her. We're not like that. Many of us play Grand Theft Auto, but we're not fucking sociopaths. So yeah, you do not seem to be able to understand the disconnect between what stays in fantasy and how we treat people in reality.
Her credibility becomes the focus of the discussion of gay misogyny, mostly by anti-feminists, misogynists, and just really die-hard gamers. She removed the comment portion on her videos after receiving numerous death and rape threats.
I'm saying that she disables comments and ratings because she can't take criticism worth shit. And I'm not saying that we should condone these comments. They're not acceptable, no matter who they're addressed towards. It's just, the fact is, people face death threats all the time. Anita Sarkeesian is not alone in this. And it happens regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. Whether you say controversial shit, and sometimes even when you don't say controversial stuff. And Anita, being someone who isn't a gamer, goes on the internet, criticizes video games, and does so without doing a shred of fucking research, and you expect gamers to take that hands down. Well, I wonder fucking why she received so many negative comments. Again, this is not to say that she necessarily deserved it. That's not to say that these comments are acceptable, but this is a reality of what happens when you come on YouTube, you say controversial shit, and you're being retarded about it. People also made a game where you can play as Jack Thompson in one of the Mortal Kombats, and you can literally beat the shit out of him. But I guess that doesn't really matter because Jack Thompson's a man and Anita Sarkeesian's a woman.
Caused already agitated and angry viewers who completely intended on doing the same thing to argue that she was not allowing them their democratic right of voting for a video's credibility by using the words ugly cunt along with giving thumbs downs after encouraging their nerdy, I mean equally angered friends to do the same.
Oh, really? You wonder why we're pissed, because she claims to want to start a discussion about video games and she hides ratings and comments.
But please keep in mind that it's both possible, and even necessary, to simultaneously enjoy a piece of media while also being critical of its more problematic or pernicious aspects.
And I love how you just labeled all of us as nerdy.
She was also funded through Kickstarter to take her original hypothesis a step further and conduct official research.
Hypothesis. As if her video series had any amount of scientific credibility to begin with. Newsflash, it doesn't.
This also caused much controversy because although conducting research has proved to be extremely expensive, no one who we don't like should ever have money. Ever.
So I don't know where you heard that, but that's not what I've been saying. What I've been saying is, I can't believe that people willingly donated $160,000 to this fucking scam artist that doesn't do her research, doesn't play the games that she's supposedly criticizing, uses other people's Let's Player footage in her video series without crediting them, and she generally approaches video game culture with a closed-minded, preconceived bias on what she's trying to say. That's not to say that I think people shouldn't donate to her, or that they don't have the right to do so. They most certainly do. I just think it's sad that people are so gullible and so blind as to not do the research for themselves. That's all.
Sarkeesian, who regularly speaks out on the subject of sexism and has spoken on TED TV, was scheduled to speak at Utah State University. But the college where the event was staged received a death threat, which described a massacre with a semi-automatic weapon if the event were to take place. The event was canceled, and the amazing atheist took it upon himself to berate Sarkeesian for refusing to speak at the event. He recalls a time when the massacre at Columbine got everyone blaming Marilyn Manson for teen violence, and when Manson was scheduled to perform in Colorado a year later, he went on stage even though he had received death threats. Shockingly, he thinks it's pertinent to die for one's beliefs.
I don't know what TJ thinks, but I don't think it's necessarily true that one should die for their beliefs. All I'm saying is that you shouldn't be intimidated by thugs, especially when these death threats were deemed to be not credible by the police and pretty much typical of what Sarkeesian received in the past. But most of the time, these threats are not credible. That's something I don't think you seem to understand. People are going to say controversial things no matter what. And yeah, part of being in the public spotlight is dealing with death threats, dealing with threats of violence. Are we just never to say something controversial? Are politicians supposed to cower in their caves just because people may not agree with them and may threaten their safety? Maybe in your personal view, but in reality, most people don't take death threats seriously because that's all they are. They are usually threats. Now, here's the off chance that someone might actually go through with the threats. Oh no, we should have listened to them, right? Well, what about cases where no threats have been made and people just go on a shooting spree? Fact is that threat or no threat does not really indicate whether someone is going to go through with their actions. It's like you're assuming these threats were credible, despite evidence suggesting the contrary. You know, the law enforcement experts declaring that these threats were not credible. I suppose that doesn't matter, right? That's just some convenient detail you can slip under the rug.
If Sarkeesian is wrong, What do you all have to lose? Do you understand that there are millions of people conducting research every day? In most cases, you have to pay to even see articles that have been published in journals, so you will literally never read the information or even be able to use it in a school report unless you are in college.
I'll tell you exactly what I have to lose. As a man, I lose my dignity, considering this idiot constantly maintains that I, as a male gamer, am a sexist, misogynistic person that only views women in video games as objects, but nothing could be further from the truth. As a gamer, I lose my voice when all these social justice whiners keep doing their whining, and I lose the games that I love when game developers decide that they want to appease these social justice whiners instead of, gamers. As someone who's an advocate of freedom of speech and freedom of expression, I have a lot to lose when Anita Sarkeesian is taking the games that I love and policing them and policing what they say, what characters they can make, what the characters can do, just so that it can appeal to her feminist ideology when she and other feminists like her aren't even gonna pay a fucking dime to play the games in the first place. Yeah, I have a lot to lose.
If she is right, the only thing that she will be changing is the content of video games. That means no more women with tits out being attacked. Is that so horrible?
So it's perfectly okay in Call of Duty to kill thousands of unnamed people. It's okay in Grand Theft Auto to take a tank and rip apart entire towns. But violence against a woman? A scantily clad woman? That's where we draw the line, folks. Yeah, you might want to get your priorities straight.
If the only reason you are playing video games is to enact fantasies on pixelated women, your parents need to step in and change that.
So the large female fan base of the Sims games, who enact fantasies on both men and women, need help? Right, it's only sexist. It's only problematic if men do it.
Your fighting feminism makes you look like you don't have an up-to-date knowledge of history.
You need to educate yourself, said every feminist in the history of ever.
And also, it makes you look like you have a problem with women.
Oh, I must be a misogynist and even I didn't realize it. Go fucking figure. Feminist seems to think that she knows my views better than I know my own views. Because if I'm not with feminism, I'm a woman hater. If I'm not with George Bush, I must be a fucking terrorist. And if I'm not with the KKK, that probably means I hate white people. Oh, and what about all the women that don't stand for feminism either? Oh, well, that's because they're just brainwashed by the patriarchy. They're just too fucking stupid to think for themselves. Or they just want to appeal to men and gain favor with them. Yeah, feminism. We only stand for the views of women when it's convenient to us. Bravo! And yeah, I did take a look at your sources that you listed in your video, and I'm glad to see that they are academic sources, at the very least. But I don't think that it necessarily points to the fact that violence in video games against women specifically causes violence against women in real life. You have not yet made that connection. The main problem I have with your research is that the majority of your articles point to a correlation between violent video games and violent behavior. First of all, it's not long-term violent behavior, it's short-term aggression. Second of all, the research that you showed doesn't specifically point to violence against women. What I'm trying to say is, if you were going to beat up a bunch of hookers in GTA, does that more likely mean that you're going to beat up a bunch of hookers in real life? Does that mean you're more likely to beat up women in real life? Or does that mean you're more likely to be violent against people in general? Research doesn't really show one option over the other. So I don't really care whether it's you that says it, Anita Sarkeesian that says it, or some stupid white knight that says it. If it's not credible, I'm gonna call you out on it. May the truth always be heard. Peace.